Flippity flop. What is up, my friends? Today I have 10 of the best one-on-one tournament fighting games that appeared during the 16-bit era, the 90s. These are games that were great fighting games for the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, and today I'm going to give you my favorite 10. Starting off with the number 10 spot, we're going to just dive right into this. We're going to start off with Fatal Fury Part 2 takes the 10th spot. Now, I had Fatal Fury, the original Fatal Fury on the Genesis and the Super Nintendo, and I realized that the Super Nintendo version was actually horrible. And I later went on to realize that there were two different developers involved with the Genesis version and the Super Nintendo version. So the Genesis version just sounded and played a lot better on the Genesis than the Super Nintendo. No comparison. But this one is Fatal Fury 2. This is the footage that I'm showing you, and this was, in my opinion, a little bit better. You had a larger character selection, a little more in depth, with more characters, and I thought this was a solid, Sega Genesis game. Remember growing up with my younger brother on the Genesis, we had Fatal Fury, before there was Street Fighter 2 on home consoles, and we'd go back and forth a lot. I would be Terry Bogart, my brother would be Andy, and it never really worked out too well for my brother. But yeah, this was a solid game, man. I had to squeeze it in here at the 10th spot. It edged out a bunch of other games. In my opinion, this one holds better than other games, that I initially had, for this 10th slot. I was thinking of games like Primal Rage, or the Genesis version of Virtua Fighter. But in my opinion, Virtua Fighter is meant to be played in a 3D polygon world, and I never thought that the Genesis version was any good. I thought it was crap. So yes, Fatal Fury 2 takes the 10th spot on my list. So, moving on to the 9th spot, we're going to go with another SNK branded game, and that is World Heroes for the Sega Genesis. Now, World Heroes, another game like Fatal Fury, is part of the Neo Geo family, SNK family. Now, the premise for this game was that this scientist created this tournament. He wanted to get the greatest fighters from all throughout the ages, all different eras. And so he built this time machine to get the greatest fighters or heroes from around the world to compete in this tournament. Hence the game World Heroes. And this game, actually, the creators were looking to create some fighters that were actually like some historical fighters. So you're going to see some historical fighters, like the character that I'm using looks just like Bruce Lee. And there's others, there's a biblical character in there, and some war heroes. I really enjoyed this game growing up, especially in the arcade. This is a great game. Came out during that Street Fighter 2 era, and it's a decent port for the Sega Genesis. I think you can also find this on the Super Nintendo as well, but I've never played the Super Nintendo version. Just the Genesis version, and I also have World Heroes. I think it's World Heroes Perfect. I have that on my Neo Geo Mini, which plays fantastic. Now, the 8th spot is going to a game called Justice League. Justice League was actually developed by Sunsoft Games, which were, they were pretty big in the 80s and 90s, and this is a solid game. Now, I have it on the Sega Genesis. It's also available on the Super Nintendo, and I haven't played that version, so I can't vouch for it. The Super Nintendo version was co-developed by Blizzard. And hey, if you're a DC Comics fan and you have a Sega Genesis, you definitely should check this game out. It's not even that too expensive. I mean, you could probably pick it up for around $10. Even on eBay, I think you could find it for fairly cheap. Solid game, and the more modern Injustice game actually takes some pages out of this game, no doubt. Very impressive graphics on the Genesis. It has an amazing intro that you just saw. For a 16-bit game, pretty badass. I really enjoyed this one, but this was a game that I didn't have growing up. I actually bought this in recent years, and I go to it still. I enjoy it, and it definitely makes my top 10 list in the 8th spot. And I wish I knew about this game, growing up in my teens. This would have been great. Moving on to the 7th spot, we're going to go with a game made by Konami, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. This is a good one. You get to use all 4 turtles, or you also have 6 villains that you can play with. Pretty good balance in this game. I have trouble picking which turtle is my favorite, but if I had to choose a favorite, I think Michelangelo is my favorite. And out of all the villains, I like to use Shredder. He's pretty overpowering. I think this may have been the only one-on-one tournament fighting game that I've ever played from Konami. It could be the only game in existence as far as fighting games, one-on-one fighting games by Konami. And this was a great entry, man. Solid, and you can see it looks pretty good. The game's pretty well balanced. You can find this on the Genesis and Super Nintendo. Although I've never played the Genesis version. But I believe the Genesis version was designed for the 3-button layout, which is kind of like a negative, because I played on my Super Nintendo. It utilizes all 4 buttons. But yeah, this is a lot of fun, man. You can play a tournament. You can play story mode, which is kind of cool. We got a little, some cutscenes and text in between fights. I really enjoyed this game, and if you're a Turtle fan, this is a great one. You'll get a lot of enjoyment out of this. So the number 7 spot goes to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. Now moving on to the number 6 spot, we're going with this wrestling fighting game, kind of like hybrid, called Saturday Night Slam Masters. Oh yeah, made by Capcom. I really enjoyed this one a lot growing up. I had it for the Super Nintendo, but I sold it. I now own it on the Sega Genesis, which is fine for me. I remember the Super Nintendo version being slightly better. You have a bunch of colorful wrestlers you can choose from. A lot of them, like this guy right here, is reminiscent of Big Bam Bigelow. I think that's what his name was, from the World Wrestling Federation. But yeah, this game combines, like Street Fighter moves with some grappling techniques. And you have your health bar. Once that health bar goes down, you can pin your opponent or submit them. And you had some colorful entries by the fighters. This is a really solid, impressive fighter / wrestler, and the controls are excellent. Some recognizable Capcom characters that you've seen from other games, like a couple of Street Fighter 2 lookalikes in here. You have Hagar is in here from Final Fight. Yeah, I used to really enjoy this game, and this game deserves a spot in my top 10. Saturday Night Slam Master. So now we are down to the final 5 fighters between the Super Nintendo and Genesis era. These are superior to the previous 5 we just talked about. So the 5th spot we're going to go with is Clay Fighters Tournament Edition. You can get this on the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. As you can see right here, this was kind of like a spoof on like Street Fighter 2. The characters kind of mock the Street Fighter 2 counterparts. I find this game hilarious and a lot of fun to play. It's really cool for you know, the casual fight fan, you could pick up a controller and figure out moves really quickly. Not too complicated, but well balanced. And you have a colorful cast of characters, very creative. I really enjoyed this game, and it looks top notch on the Super Nintendo. I'm not sure how it looked on the Sega Genesis, but you know, it looks spectacular on the Super Nintendo. It's kind of rivals how Donkey Kong Country looked, in my opinion. Now, at one point, you could have got Clay Fighter on the Nintendo Wii Virtual Console, but you know, I think about a year or so ago, Nintendo closed the digital store. But I don't think this game has been released since. You know, I'd love to see a modern version of this game. It'd probably look amazing and play really, really well. We'll have to just wait and see. But I find this game very entertaining. If you've never tried Clay Fighter, definitely give it a shot. There's a few sequels out there, a couple sequels aside from the original. The one that you're seeing here is Clay Fighter Tournament Edition on the Super Nintendo. Where else can you find Elvis Presley in a one-on-one fighting game that actually kicks ass? Clay Fighter Tournament Edition. All right, with just 4 more games to talk about. In the 4th spot, we're gonna go with another Neo Geo SNK game called Samurai Showdown. Let's take a look. Samurai Showdown. There wasn't that many one-on-one weapons-based fighters between the Genesis and Super Nintendo, and this one was second to none of them. I had this on the Genesis. I also have, you know, you can find Samurai Showdown is very popular. You can find, you know, ports probably on your modern consoles, no doubt. You know, Switch, Xbox One, PS4. I say modern consoles. We're already into you know, generation 9 now with the PS5. But I also have a copy of Samurai Showdown. You can find it on the Neo Geo Mini. But we're talking about the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo versions here. I played this quite often as a kid. At one point, you know, that's all I played was Samurai Showdown. Although, you know, this is one of the games I love, but I was never great at. But that doesn't deter me away from, you know, me loving this game. I like to use Hamoharu and Ukyo. Those two would be my favorite. But like I said, I'm far from being great at it. I still have much more to learn. And I need to get the new Samurai Showdown. It's still on my list of games to get for the PS4. I'll get that eventually. It looks great. And there's been a bunch of add-ons to it too, so I'll definitely be getting it soon. Samurai Showdown takes the 4th spot on my list. We're moving on to the top 3. Now these 3 games are in a class by itself. So we're going to start with the 3rd spot, and that is Killer Instinct for the Super Nintendo. This was exclusive to the Super Nintendo, and hey, I like it. I think it's great. I spent a lot of time playing Killer Instinct on the Super Nintendo. I discovered this in the arcades, like most of the games that I've talked about on this list. I remember I was on a cruise back when I was like 18 years old. We went on a family cruise, and during the day I'd spend it in the arcades on the ship. They had this amazing arcade at the ship. Dozens and dozens of the most modern arcade machines there. So I spent a lot of time, you know, when we were floating around at the arcades. And at nighttime I'd spend it at the clubs. Yeah, man. Killer Instinct's badass. Each character had finishing moves. Great animation for its time. I thought the graphics were outstanding. And as you can see here, I like to use Jago. He kind of reminds me of, you know, Ken and Ryu. But yeah, this is heavily based off of performing and executing brilliant combos. You know, that's the key to mastering this game, is to come up with as many combos as you can in a row, you know. I think the most I've been able to pull off are like 9, 10 hit combos. But I think I've seen the computer, you know, if you put that shit on hard, man, they'll kick your ass. They'll pull out like 20, 15. hit combos on your ass. Really tough. But yes, Killer Instinct deserves the mention here, and I feel like it belongs at number 3 on my list of the best 10 fighters. So now, moving on to the top 2 on my list. Now these two really can be tied for first place. It's just personal preference. So my personal preference, I'm gonna go with for the second spot is Mortal Kombat. You can go with any one of the Mortal Kombat games, but for this list, I'm going with Mortal Kombat 3 on the Super Nintendo. I thought that was the best version out of all of them. You know, from the Genesis versions to the Super Nintendo versions, I've played them all. And I just feel like Mortal Kombat 3 was the complete package. And I'm showing you screen footage on my PS2. I played this game to show you the footage on my PS2 because I don't have my Mortal Kombat 3 copy on the Super Nintendo anymore. But I remember buying that when it released. I think it was like a $70 price tag on that for the Super Nintendo, along with the, you know, Street Fighter 2 also with a $70 price tag. And you know, I got my money's worth. Trust me, I played a lot of Mortal Kombat 3. My brother got a kick out of it too. But yeah, you can get this if you want this exact arcade port from the screenshot footage. This is played on my PS2. This was the Midway Arcade Collections Volume 2. There's 3 volumes, and this one was on the Volume 2. But yeah, Cabal was my favorite of the bunch, but I also love to use Liu Kang. I liked them all too. I mean, I really liked them all. And you know, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, I liked them all. But yes, Mortal Kombat 3 is where it's at.
Cabal wins. Fatality.
Now the final game on my list needs no introduction, and if you've been a subscriber for a while on my channel, you already know what I'm gonna say. So let's hear it. You're right. Street Fighter 2 takes the #1 spot. In particular, Street Fighter 2 Turbo. I feel like it's the best 16-bit fighter between the two consoles of the 90s. Street Fighter 2 Turbo, in my opinion, is the greatest. Now, in particular, you know, my personal preference, I thought it was just a little bit sharper and sounded better on the Super Nintendo, and I prefer the Super Nintendo controller over the Sega Genesis controller, so that's why I take the Super Nintendo version over the Genesis version. I mean, look at this game. It still looks beautiful. It leaps and bounds, you know, when you compare it to some of the previous games that I have on my list, just in the visuals, you know, and this is like the best as far as the gameplay, the mechanics, the hit detection, the sound. It's like Street Fighter 2 Turbo in the first spot is an exotic car, and Fatal Fury 2 in the 10th spot is an economy car. This game takes the cake, and it's my favorite 16-bit one-on-one fighter of all time. So there you have it, my friends. My favorite top 10 fighters between the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. You know, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and maybe you know, found a game or two that you didn't know about. You know, that's what I try and do, bring some attention to some of these old games. You can find these on, you know, through emulation, and you know, even if you don't have a Genesis or Super Nintendo hooked up anymore, you can still enjoy these games. You know, if you're willing to look them up, you know, you can find them. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you guys real soon on the next one. See you next week. Peace.